Hey guys, how's it going? Kevin Cleary here with a multi-tool review. Now, these have been out for a while. I have here two budget Leathermans, the Leatherman Sidekick and the Leatherman Wingman. Both of these are fairly budget priced. So if you're wanting to get into a Leatherman, but you don't want to spend a lot of money, these are great options. And in fact, you see these on sale sometimes for really good, like $29.99, $39.99. And those prices are fairly reasonable. You should be able to get them any day of the week for at least less than $50, okay? And they're gonna function pretty darn well. The cool thing about these, and one of the reasons I'm putting this video out now, is this is a great last minute gift idea. So if you're losing your mind, you don't know what to get, I mean, this is a pretty handy gift for anyone, boy, girl, you know, young, old, whatever. Everyone can use this, even if they're not gonna carry it on their person, although it does have a clip, so you could do that. You could drop this in a car, in a purse, in a junk drawer, and just pull it out when you need one of the tools. So I think they make pretty darn good gifts, and you're not spending a huge amount of money. You know, if you go out and buy something this, and they never ever use it, yeah, that would be a bit problematic. But when you buy this, you know, even if they rarely or never use it, it's not the end of the world, and you still know at least they've got something useful. So this is one of my suggestions for an easy gift idea. And if it's not Christmas when you're watching this, you probably still know someone who's having a birthday or graduation or something else that could probably use a handy tool. So let's do a little side-by-side comparison of these. Let's talk about what is good and what is bad. And then we'll do some other comparisons to maybe a couple of other multi-tools as well. So let's go ahead, start off with getting a look at the tools on these. Now they're very, very similar, okay? Both of these are spring loaded, and you'll have to decide whether or not that's your thing or not. So you can see, if I let off this, see how there's spring tension there? Now that is super handy. If you're doing a lot of work, you know, if you're grabbing a bolt and you're turning it and then you want to do this type of thing, it is much easier with the spring than not. Let me just quickly demonstrate that for you. So if I do the same little trick, I'm not gonna obviously pinch too hard, but I pinch and I go to reposition. These are, and I know because I've done this many, many times, you know, this is a little awkward of a motion to try and do over and over again. So I do actually like the spring loading, although the argument that says, hey, the material you've removed does weaken these, you know, I'd buy that. However, here's what I would say, and I say this about multi-tools in general, the same thing that I say about folding knives. If you're like fixing your car or building a house or something like that, you don't want a multi-tool, okay? You need to go out and buy yourself a proper set of pliers. In fact, buy a set that has channel locks and side cutters and pliers and, you know, the whole thing that are very heavy duty. That's something that's well worth spending your money on. And if you're thinking you're gonna buy something like this for 40 bucks and it's gonna do the job of all those tools and you're saving yourself, you're not. They're not as capable, okay? And that's gonna be true across the board. Any of the tools we pull out here, you know, whether it's the knife or the saw or the bottle opener or whatever else, it's not gonna be as functional as the real thing with a dedicated purpose, okay? And that's just the nature of multi-tools, guys. You can't complain about it. It is what it is. If you buy a multi-tool, you're sacrificing some function for convenience, okay? That's just how the game is played. You're not getting around that. And there's no such thing as a multi-tool that works as good as, you know, even probably the cheapest set of pliers that you can buy at Canadian Tire. Dollarama pliers, yeah, these are probably even better than Dollarama pliers, but Canadian Tire pliers, no. All right, so let's go ahead and start looking at some of the tools that we're going to get on these. Actually, let's take a quick look at size and weight first of all. So both of these weigh about 6.5 ounces, and that is lighter than, say, something like this. This is the Gerber 600, I think M600 or something. This Leatherman Signal is, you know, 8 or 9 ounces. So these guys both come in lighter than pretty much any full-size multi-tool. This guy, the Leatherman Skeletool, is gonna be a little lighter. This guy's around 5 ounces, still pretty heavy. That's kind of, you know, all multi-tools are a little heavy. The other thing about this is you're getting a smaller plier. So we'll take a look at that in a second. Let's just pull the ruler in here, okay, and give you a quick look. These are about 4 inches in length. I'm not being precise here because doesn't really matter. Again, both about 4 inches. They're about 1.5 inches wide, all right, and about 6.5 ounces. When you open these guys all the way up, and I'm just gonna measure one because they're too close to even care about the difference, about 6 inches. And the way that compares to a full-size multi-tool, you know, here you've got getting close to 7 inches and more like 5 inches closed. 4.5, okay? So these are a little smaller, a little easier to carry. Let's go ahead and look at some of these tools now. And these are different, so I'm gonna try to go back and forth. And let me flip them up so that you can see. So this is the Wingman. All right, and I'll keep reminding you, this is the Wingman, this is the Signal. That's gonna be important when you decide what tools you want. Now there are some similarities. Let's pop these guys out because they're a little more different. So on the Sidekick, you're gonna get a serrated blade, a small file, and a small file of this size is hard to make much use of. It does have a little slot screwdriver at the end, and then a cap lifter here. And it does have this little ring on it that you can use. So let's see, you could leave this open and clip this onto something. On the other side, we're going to have a slot and a Phillips screwdriver, and that's the same on both of these. So the Wingman and the Sidekick, you're both getting those two tools. It's the other side and the blades that are going to be a little bit different. So on this side, instead of the small serrated blade, there you go. So on the Wingman, instead of the small serrated blade, you're getting sort of a box cutter. And honestly, I would lean toward the Sidekick in this case. Because of that blade, I would rather have an extra blade than the little box cutter. However, depending on your circumstances and what you're doing, that may be different for you. If you close these, one feature I really like that both have in common is the fact that I can access the blades without opening the tool. That is a really, really nice touch. Now, here again is a pretty big difference. You get a saw blade on the Sidekick, you get scissors on the Wingman. All right, so again, depending on what you're wanting now, obviously standard and serrated blade, you can understand then why the Sidekick has a serrated blade over here, because you don't have a serrated portion here. In terms of which one you're going to go with, again, that depends on your uses. A serrated blade can sometimes be useful for longer periods of time, depending on what steel it is. By the way, these are all pretty budget steels, so you're not going to get any kind of crazy edge retention out of any of them. But yeah, and so maybe that lends itself to serrated blade a little bit, because you know if this is going to get dull anyway, generally a serrated blade when dull is going to still perform a little better than a standard, just a plain edge blade when dull. That's worth considering. The other thing that's worth considering, and I've tried a little bit with both of these, all right, keep in mind, we're talking about multi-tools, and so my qualification from before holds true. These scissors are not spring-loaded, okay? So that means, and I've done some cutting with these, it gets a little awkward trying to sort of roll your thumb back and forth like this to keep the cutting going. Not the end of the world, and I was able to cut with them. Let's see. Here's a piece of paper I can kind of show. So you can see that once you get going, you can do it, but spring-loaded scissors would probably be nicer. Again, remember the price point on these. And so one quick comparison here. Let's get these opened up and show you what we're dealing with. Actually, forget it. By the way, these blades are locking. If you just saw me try to close that and it didn't work. So let's do just a really, really quick side by side so you can see the tools that you're getting. I'm going to try to get everything out as best I can. And here we go on this side. So the reason I'm doing this is because then you can take one quick look and see everything that's on both and make a decision over which one you feel like would be more useful. So here's the Wingman one more time with the scissors and the serrated blade. Here's the Sidekick with the saw and the standard edge. These tools are the same, so the Phillips and the slot, and then these tools are going to be different where, well, you're getting the cap lifter, the file, and a box opener, cap lifter, file, and serrated blade. All right, so as I look at these two, I probably lean a little bit toward the Sidekick. Obviously, the Wingman would maybe be more suited for household tasks. You've got the scissors, you've got this little sort of box opener. And maybe this one leans a little bit toward outdoors with the saw and the extra blade. If nothing else, the extra blade is at least advantageous because if one blade goes dull, you can sort of still have a backup blade that's sharp. Actually, let's leave these guys open and I'll talk about some of the weaknesses. And these weaknesses are pretty common to all multi-tools. So number one, the steel is usually not great. Now on the Leatherman Signal, I believe this guy is 154 cm. It is a little longer blade. The other thing is pretty much all multi-tools have this issue of a bit of flex. Now this one's better and it's a pretty well built. The Signal is a pretty well built multi-tool. They are gonna have a little bit of flex. If you're squeezing really hard on this, you'll feel it. The other thing you have to watch out for, and this is true of every multi-tool I've seen, if you get your fat of your hand up there, you can pinch yourself really, really hard. I know because I've done it lots of times. These two can be guilty of it as well. The pliers are useful, but they have that one limitation. One nice thing that these guys have is, look at the end of the plier here. See how tightly it closes? Now there's a little bit of gap here, but that's okay. That's by design because they're trying to get this to be very, very fine so that it functions like a pair of needle nose pliers or even almost like a pair of tweezers. And that is definitely nice. All right. There was one thing I wanted to say about these that they don't have, and I kind of wish they did, and that is this guy right here. Okay, this changeable bit piece here is really, really handy. I have the same thing on the Skelletool, and if you combine one of these little bits here with the Leatherman multi-packs, you now have tons and tons of bits that you can use for your multi-tool, and I, for one, really, really like that. Now, I still would not necessarily recommend splurging for something more like this. There may be a version of the Leatherman Juice. Someone mentioned down in the comments, please, if you would, if there's a Leatherman Juice that has the, where is it now on this guy? That has the changeable bit system. Okay, by the way, this is the Skelletool. Now the Skelletool has a smaller plier. Okay, so it's definitely lighter at only 5 ounces. It's easier to carry in pocket. And they were really going for, on this tool, a multi-tool that would be small enough and light enough that you could carry it on your person. These are a little big for that, probably more recommended for a bag or a pouch, but they can be pocket carried. This is gonna pocket carry more comfortably, but again, like I said a second ago, you're making sacrifices for convenience. So now, okay, you've got a smaller plier head. Now, is that going to be the end of the world? Will this still do a lot of things? And I've carried this a lot and I have done a lot of things with it, but you are going to get some limitation with a tool like this. Not that you're not getting any with this. The other couple of things I should point out, one of the big differences between this and this is pretty common between budget and slightly more expensive multi-tools. See these replaceable hardened steel blades? So if I'm cutting wire, this actually works pretty well. These, they don't even close all the way. So not the best option for cutting wire, which is one of the main reasons that I have this. I've used this a lot, like fixing little stupid stuff on the car. In my car, I always keep a roll of wire and a roll of duct tape. And if you've got a roll of wire and these, you're pretty well set. But if you've got a roll of wire and nothing to cut it, that's really, really frustrating, okay? So could you get the job done with this and, you know, hold on to it and wiggle it until the wire breaks? Yep, you could, okay? So that's a bit of a discussion. Now here's the one, so we've talked about some of the negatives. We talked about the fact there's a little bit of weakness, that the tools are not, you know, stellar tools in every case. We've talked about some of the things that you're giving up on these versus a more expensive multi-tool. Now I want to bring in where they're kind of doing well. And that is especially compared to something like a Swiss Army knife or like this Reich LD 43. Both of these are pretty handy and most of the tools work fine. The tools in general on these are smaller than the tools on these. They're also mostly non-locking. And they can be, especially on this guy, very difficult to access. I have the worst time. I just don't have the nails to get these tools out. And of course, this has pliers as well, but like I kept saying, you're making quite a big sacrifice to get, you're making a sacrifice, very small tool to fit into this package, all right? So, I guess the balance between, this would be sort of the next step down. So if you didn't want to carry a full-size multi-tool and you've gone to this and you feel like this is still too big, now you can go down to something like this. Obviously these ones are terrible examples of what I'm telling you. You'd get a Swiss Army knife that's like this thick, that has just these tools or something. All right. Now, let's move this out of the way. These are going to be more acceptable and more commonly, you know, you're going to get a better reception to these than maybe something like this in a lot of cases, because this is more viewed as a tool, where this still may be viewed a little bit as a knife. And so for that reason, these probably make better gifts. These are also very reasonably priced, cheaper than this. Not cheaper, I don't think, than every one of these rake multi-tools. These are pretty nicely built, by the way, and the steel is a big step up on this over this, okay? But back to our focus, the Leatherman Wingman and the Leatherman Sidekick. As I say, they're both very similar. I would say now that you've seen all the tools, and if you've forgotten, just go back and rewind and take a quick look. I opened them all up, so you can pause the video, kind of look through the tools and decide which one is more suitable for either you or or for whoever you're buying for when you're giving this as a gift. And the other nice thing about this is a tool, you know, this would be something that I would buy and give to my son. You know, you find these on sale, 29 bucks, and you don't mind if he breaks it or loses it, because he likely will. And I have given him, he has a fixed blade. He has one of those little the little one, the Edoris maybe. He has a small folder. Something like this would sort of be the next step. Great to give a kid for camping, for a birthday, when he's kind of in that coming of age stage where he's starting to be allowed to have some grown-up stuff, or any kid who's now allowed to have some grown-up stuff. All right, so there you go, guys. That's my discussion, my comparison, and my overall take on these little Leatherman tools. Very budget friendly, okay? And I think, you know, yes, there are limitations, but if you're able to get these for like 30 or 40 bucks, that's a great price. And for that price, the value you're getting and the usefulness you're getting, I don't think is a problem whatsoever. Hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know your favorite multi-tool down below. If you carry a multi-tool, or if maybe you're more like me, I do have a multi-tool close by all the time, in my car, in my bag, stuff like that, but I don't keep one on my person. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will talk to you soon.